Alright guys, that's how you install a Series 30 torque converter that's made for a Predator engine onto a Briggs Stratton 900 series. Next, it's time to start figuring out how to mount this motor on the go-kart. Well, good morning guys. Guys, it is several days later and we finna start the part 2 of this go-kart build. And what I have sitting up here is my Briggs Stratton's 900 series motor that we're going to be trying to install on that go-kart. So today I'm going to be installing the torque converter, and I wanted to show y'all, in case some of you ever want to try to do this, I got a torque converter from Go Power Sports. But this torque converter is actually made to go onto a Predator engine and a few more different engines, but the Predator 212, like I said, this is the 30 series. So one thing I had to do, and I'm going to show y'all up close here, on the Predator engine, it ain't got no lip sticking out here. On the Briggs Strattons, especially this 900 series, it's got that lip sticking out there and won't let the plate go up against the motor. So this torque converter comes with a hole in it, approximately about 2 inches round, and I think this is 2 1/4. So I took my Dremel tool and my air drill with a grinder bit on it and put this in a vise, and I sat there and went around and around and around this aluminum plate, because this is aluminum, to get this hole big enough to go over that sleeve. Now I got a clip here. I'll show y'all a short clip of me grinding that out. It was just slow and tedious, but it got her done. So now I'm going to get y'all over here close and we're going to install the 30 series torque converter onto this Briggs Stratton's 900. So what comes in the package, we got our plate here. And this is back here on the back part. I think they call that a jack plate X4 or something like that, but it goes through from the outside. Then we got our 4 bolts here. I think it was about 1 3/8 flat washer, lock washer. And I'm going to be mounting mine in them center holes. That's the only place it'll fit on this Briggs. When you start these, you want to run these up with your fingers and make dang sure they ain't cross-threaded before you put a wrench on them. Get all 4 of them started real good before you start running one down. If you don't, you won't be able to get them in there. Another thing I'm going to show y'all guys is the oil plug on back of the motor, like this one on this side. I actually had to cut them nipples off. And I turned the motor around after a while to show y'all you had to cut them nipples off. Or if you got a plug like these style, you have to cut that off so it won't touch it. So I'm going to run these up with my wrench first. And just like when you putting tires on a car or something, you jump from one side to the other, and when you tighten, and you don't tighten one side down all the way and then tighten it. You want to keep it lined up as you tighten. Now that I got them snug down with my wrench and everything looks like it's seated good and flat. Now I'm finna torque them down with my torque wrench. Next, we're gonna take our gear, which I'm gonna be using the 10 tooth. This comes with a 10 and a 12. This is for the number 41, 40, or 420 chain, and this is for the number 35 chain. So if you order this, you ain't got to worry about what chain you got. But we're going to take our gear, and we got our long key here that goes in this slot on this jack rod. That's what I'm going to call it, as a jack rod. Don't know if that's the proper name or not. Slide your gear on there. The gear, it don't matter which side you go on, because it's same on both sides. And then you got this little washer with the keyhole cut out on it. You'll slide right up on there. Next, you'll slide the clutch with the big spring and stuff on it. Like I said, guys, there's better videos on installing this, but I'm just showing y'all how I got it to install on a Briggs Stratton's. But the clutch, the flat plate, always goes in, which means your spring and all goes out. Line your key up. Slide that on there. And then next is just a flat washer and a self-locking nut. And it has that plastic ring in it where it's self-locking. Now I ain't gonna run that totally up tight yet. I'm gonna stop at that point. And then we're gonna get ready to put the front clutch on. It comes in 2 pieces or 3 pieces, just like so. And I'll show y'all something about this piece in a moment. This is one's got your brass bushing that your belt runs on. This is your flat side. So it'll go first. Now I may have to pull it back off and put some washers in there. It's got to have spacers in there, because you got to pull this out so it's in line with this plate up here. Hopefully the washers they sent a wide one and a flat one. I'm going to put them both on there first and see where I'm at, and see if I'm going to have to do something else. Yeah, I may not need just a thin one. Let's see. No, the thin one ain't enough by itself. Both of them's too many, so let me try the wide one by itself. That's too much. So I'm gonna have to find me another washer for a spacer, because one thin one ain't enough. One wide one's too much. Alright guys, I'm going to have to pause for a minute and find me some more washers that'll fit on here for spacers. I'm sure if you was working on the Predator engine over here, these 2 would have worked just right, since that's what this torque converter is built for. Like I said, one of mine's too thick and the other's too thin. So I'll be back in a moment. Alright guys, I went through my scrap bucket and I found a washer that would work just right. I'm going to have to use the little one that come with the package. And then I got one here, even though it's bigger around, the hole fits perfect and the thickness is perfect. And what you do, you stand over here, y'all can see my hand, and I'm looking, and you make sure the flat side of this is lined up with the flat side of that, so it won't eat your belt up. So now that I got that lined up, I'm going to take my impact, and I'm going to run this self-locking nut up. And you don't want to overdo this. You just want it till you get the slack out of it. And you see the threads on that bolt is sticking through the end of that nut, so it's a self-locking nut. And I say that's good enough. Next, you're going to take your belt. You got a flat side on your belt and a bevel side on your belt. Flat side goes on the inside toward the engine. Go on and pull your clutch back here apart, which is kind of tricky. pull it a little bit, as much as you can, and pull that belt and get it up over that brass bushing. Now, the other part of the clutch up here on the front comes in 3 pieces. You want your slope, of course, pointing in. But on this bushing here, you want the side that's got the 2 little slots here pointed out. And that's because them slots fit the hole in this outside bell. Line that up on there. Then you got a Pac-Man washer here. Kind of a washer slash something. Make sure that's lined up with your key, which is the only way to go in. And you got your bolt with a little flat washer and a lock washer. Now again, I'm running into something else since I'm putting this on a Briggs and not on a Predator. Is my bolt bottoms out before it gets tight. So either I can go buy a new bolt, or I can get me a couple more washers is what I'm finna do. And put in this as a spacer. So you can see, putting this on a Briggs Stratton ain't just as simple as throwing it on there. Alright, I got some more washers just like the flat washer that was on there. And it ain't gonna matter what this looks like, because see guys, it's gonna be behind, after I get the engine mounted, it'll be behind the cover. So it don't matter that them sticking out a little bit, or at least it don't to me. And we're gonna run this up with an impact. I'm gonna say that's tight enough. Now we're gonna fire this engine up and see if this works. Now, I don't know if some of you seen part 1 or not, but this engine's got a starter on it that's a 120 volt starter. It was off of a tiller. So I'm gonna get over here on the other side, turn my gas on, and see if it'll start. Alright guys, that's how you install a Series 30 torque converter that's made for a Predator engine onto a Briggs Stratton 900 series. Next, it's time to start figuring out how to mount this motor on the go-kart. Alright guys, before we go to work of trying to fit the motor up, I got to put the new sprocket on here, and I'm going, since this is a small motor, I'm going with the 72 tooth. I think this is 12 inches or right at 12 inches. And that come from Go Power Sports. Here's a 72 tooth aluminum sprocket replaced. So we're going to have to take the axle back off. I had it all bolted back up until I got the parts in. You just remove these 3 bolts right here on each end. Alright, next guys, actually I'm going to have to undo the disc brake again. in order to do this. Now we should be able to slide this axle. You have to slide it to get it down to the narrow end of the axle so it'll fall through the slot. And we got to take this bearing and stuff off the end. Just like such. To put our sprocket on. And before I move forward with the sprocket, I'm going to go on Now before I go to putting the sprocket on, guys, I'm going to go on and reinstall my 3 bolts on each end of my axle and my 4 bolts right here in my brake disc. And then I put the 4 bolts in that holds the sprocket on. Now I'm bolting the brake disc back on. Next, guys, I'm going to put my brake caliper back on, because I want to make sure all this is perfectly lined up before I put something on and then go to reinstall, just say this brake caliper, and then I done put something in the way. So I'm putting this back on. Guys, now we're ready to put the sprocket on. Now, here's the sprocket that came off. A lot thicker, heavier duty sprocket. Now I'd rather, I think, had this in steel than this aluminum, so I don't know how much this is going to hold up. But again, I went with this big 72 tooth, because of putting that small engine on this go-kart with these big tires. I want to make sure it's got torque to take off. I ain't worried about top speed. I just want, when the adult's in here, it'll take off, and I decided I better go with the biggest sprocket I could get. And it still may not do. But this is one of these things, nobody that I've come across puts a small engine on here. They put them 420cc engines when you do see somebody doing the engine swap like this. And Go Power Sports is the only place that I could find that had sprockets that would change out on this go-kart. And it's a tight fit. A very tight fit. So you got to make sure them holes are lined up perfect. I'm going to stick a bolt in there with a nut on a couple of them. Try to hold it in line before I bump it up on that shaft. Like I said, it's fitting height. Just don't look to me like aluminum would be the best thing to build a sprocket out of. I don't know. Seems like that's going to wear out too quick. It fits just right, guys. A good tight snug fit, that's for sure. Size there. Wheel. There's our big sprocket. Axle's back on. Now it's time to focus on. I'm going to use this. This is 4-inch purling, what it is. Instead of using angle square tubing, I had this 4-inch purling. I done cut a piece here. This is why I didn't do no welding until I got my sprocket and stuff in, because if I'd have messed up weld this cross member in too close to this sprocket, it wouldn't have worked. Okay guys, I got the motor just sitting on there. I ain't doing no welding because right now I'm gonna have to cut this battery box off in order for my bracket to move over here to make sure my sprockets is lined up. So I remove that battery box, then I set the motor and brackets back up here. Get everything marked out. And then I'll weld the bracket in place and see if we can get this motor bolted down in this chain on here. Now I'm going to be using the existing fuel tank that mounts up here on top. But one thing I see, I may have to remove this exhaust muffler and put a different header pipe on so it won't hit this cross member, because I want to leave all them cross members and all them extra braces. I don't want to cut all that off. So I'm probably going to have to do something different to my exhaust right here. Put a different header and then put the exhaust further out away from the bike. So that's where I'm at. I'm going to take my grinder. I ain't going to video none of that. Just cutting that battery box off, set it back up on there and get it lined up. And we'll go from there. But I'm thinking this 900 series with that torque converter and this big sprocket ought to have enough torque to take off, even though them's 22-inch tires. They only measure 20 inches high, tall. They don't actually measure 22 inches tall. So I'm hoping it's got enough torque to start off. Okay guys, I got it pretty lined up now. I went on and stuck the chain on, just left it loose, got it laid around there, because one of the main things you want to do is get back here and look at your chain and make sure all of this is good and lined up. Then I took measurements on the frame and put some marks and measurement on the front, and they come out the same, so that ought to be pretty good and lined up. So now, this is another thing I'm not going to video. I'm finna tack weld my cross brace here, and I'm going to tack weld my motor mount. That way it can't move. I'm going to just put a little tack weld on it, remove my engine, and then I'll weld it up good, and then come back and remount the engine. Another thing I done is that exhaust, that was a heat shield over it. So now after I removed the heat shield, I don't think I'm gonna have to worry about that. I think that exhaust is gonna work just fine. So I'm finna tack weld this, and then I'll get back with y'all again. But as you can see, everything is lining up good. Got enough space between my bracket and my chain. That's the reason you didn't want to weld no cross brace under there. With these big sprockets, you want to make sure you got plenty of space there for your chain. All right, guys, that's all it is. 1 2x4 beam as a brace welded under there, and then the motor mount welded under there. Now my welding ain't the best looking, but I think it'll hold. Now I'm gonna get me some black spray paint, and I'm gonna paint all that good before I set the motor on there. Alright guys, we got a coat of primer on it. Little black paint tied in with the old other black paint. And that's what you're looking at. One cross beam, one motor mount. So now I'm gonna set the motor back on there, try to get the chain on it, get it bolted down. Then we can go in and try and figure out how to get the throttle cable hooked up. So there I go. Let's go get the motor. Alright guys, I got the motor mounted. I got the chain put on, and I didn't record doing that because there's videos on how to break a chain and put links in it. It's all bolted down. Now we're finna put the Trailmaster gas tank on. And guys, this fitting that was on this Trailmaster was a vent, some type of vent fitting. And I wished I could tell y'all what size threads it is, but it's metric. But I had a fitting that screwed right on that tank. Then I went to the hardware store, and they had a fitting that reduced down to a barb. And I'm gonna put this gas tank on here, and I'm gonna put a gas line with a cutoff valve and a filter, inline filter, going to my carburetor. So that's what I'm working on next. Guys, most of these parts either come from Go Power Sports or Amazon. If they come from Amazon, I have an Amazon affiliated link in the description below. And I rightly don't remember what millimeter gas line this is, but I got a little inline cutoff valve and an inline filter. Now I want to go to a bigger filter, a clear filter that I can see. But this is the only one I got at the moment, so I'm gonna go and stick it on there. I get this stuck together, guys, and then I'll show y'all. It's just sticking it all together. See how I'm gonna route it, and then I'll show y'all how I'm gonna route it. And how I want my gas valve to where I can cut it on and off. Okay guys, I got the fuel line run, and this is how I chose to do it, right or wrong. There's my cutoff valve, and the reason I got it that way is because when I flip down my seats, I can reach under there and cut the gas off, or I can do it from back here. Also, I got to looking and I had one of them clear filters I was wanting. I got it zip tied over here to the up under the choke, that way to keep the fuel line away from the exhaust. I'm turning the spark plug wire right now to get it away from the exhaust, and that exhaust can get hot, so I wanted to get everything away from it. So now we're finna see if we can fire up. Now it ain't ready to go test ride or nothing yet. That's gonna come a little later. We still got to do the throttle cable. I still got the original throttle cable off this Trailmaster here. Here it is hanging right here. I'm gonna try to run it somewhere and see if I can make it work. But we finna crank it up and see exactly what happens here. All right, let's see. Give it a little choke. Guys, we're getting close, but y'all gonna have to wait to part 3, because that's gonna end part 2 of this video. Now part 3, I'm gonna have to get out here and figure out and see if I can make the throttle cable work, and I want the kill switch to where I can kill it up front. Also, I may build some kind of little cover to go over the throttle mechanism right here on this motor. Maybe just a plastic cover or something. I need to put the cover on the torque converter. And then I got this piece of frame back here that goes up and bolts right here. Now I'm gonna do all that, and on part 3 we'll have it together and take a test ride. So y'all come back and see if it happens. See if it's got enough torque with this 900 series Briggs Stratton. See if that's enough torque for these 22-inch tires with that torque converter and that 72 that's a tongue twister there, a 72 tooth sprocket. But we gonna see. So y'all come back now, you hear? So guys, if you like these little videos so far, please give me a thumbs up. If you ain't never subscribed, please reach down there and hit that subscribe button. It don't cost you a thing, but it does help me grow my YouTube channel. And guys, y'all come back for part 3. We're gonna see if this was a waste of time, or if this little motor is gonna be all right for just Papaw and Coach and something to ride around on. So, as always, I hope y'all have a great day and a blessed week. God bless. See y'all next time.